Today we're gonna tackle one of the most dreaded DIY brake jobs, if not the most dreaded, which is the Jaguar S type rear brake job. There are a couple of videos on YouTube talking about this, but quite lengthy and full of cursing. I don't blame him, I can totally feel it, because I don't want to do it either. But it's time, I have to do it. I have a feeling that my passenger rear brake pad is stuck. Let's do a simple test. Although this car been parked a while, maybe an hour, the driver rear rotor is reading at roughly 19 degrees Celsius, which is about 66 Fahrenheit. Same spot on the passenger rear. It's reading about 27 Celsius or 81 Fahrenheit. Definitely hotter than the other side. And when it's just parked, I can tell the burning smell from this side. And then look at the brake dust on the rim, way more than the other side. And all these signs are telling me I have at least changed the brake pads and do some proper lubrication. And the reason why this job is dreaded is because of the dumb design of Jaguar. So the rear brake is using electronic parking brake (EPB), but the driver has no control of it. Whenever you shift into parking gear, it's automatically engaged. Right now I jacked up the rear diff, so the rear wheels are in air. As you can see, I cannot turn the wheel, because apparently the EPB is turned on when I parked. With that, you can't do any rear brake jobs, because the pads are squeezed so tight onto the rotor. There are a few ways you can disengage the EPB. A. You can use a dealer level scan tool, which I assume most of us don't have and is ridiculously expensive. Some may argue you can use some bi-directional scan tools with special functions. But trust me, I own both X2 and top-down. They're expensive ones, but none of them work on this old Jaguar. Option B. There's a thread on Jaguar forum, so you can keep pushing down the parking brake button when turning off the engine. That way, the parking brake will not be applied. Let's find out. Please ignore my OSHA pajamas. So firstly, I have to turn it on. Now I'm ready to shut it down. Quite an awkward position. I'm using my left hand to push down the parking brake button, and the right hand to turn off the key. And let's see if I can spin the rear wheel. It's tight, but at least I can turn it. It doesn't spin freely, probably because the caliper is stuck. Anyway, I believe the EPB is finally disengaged. And of course, you don't want it accidentally turn on again, so I disconnected the battery's negative terminal afterwards. Although it works, there's option C if you want to go fancy. In this case, you need a power probe or things of that sort. I hook up the power probe with the positive and negative terminals, and go to active test mode. Then you have to peel off the liner on the right side of the trunk, so that you expose the EPB control module, the black box. There are two wire connectors to the box. Disconnect the one in the front. In my case, it's a light gray connector, as opposed to the other white one in the back. You'll notice that there are two very thick wires, the red-white strips and the green-white strips. If you send power to the green-white terminal and ground to the red-white terminal, this way will disengage the EPB, and of course the other way will engage the EPB. And the setup will be something like this. I backprobe the connector. Here I power to the red-white terminal, because I'm trying to figure out which way is which. But either way, you should be able to hear the motor running when you apply the power. You may not hear in the video, but I definitely can hear in person. Well, the rest part is pretty much a routine brake job. There's so much brake dust I have to brake clean it, very liberally. And the penetrating oil to the caliper bolts and the bracket bolts. Caliper bolt is 12 mm. Pry out the caliper. I'll just leave it here, the parking brake cable is holding it. The pad on the outside still have decent amount of material. The pad on the inside is a goner, barely anything left. Apparently we have uneven wear, probably because of seized caliper or slide pin. It's easy to check the slide pin first. The upper one still moves freely. The lower one is solid, it's on there, frozen. I can't even rotate it, not to mention to pull it out. So we have to remove the caliper bracket to fix it, which is held by two 15 mm bolts. For the bottom one, there's no room for the impact, have to use a ratchet. Doesn't work, change to a brake bar. Now it break loose. Ah, how convenient. Still can't turn it. I have to fix it. I don't want to spend more money to buy another caliper. Let's go to the vise. Look at how much rust inside. Some people would torch the portion of the caliper where the slide pin goes into, but it can be dangerous that too much pressure builds inside, and the slide pin could shoot out like a bullet. So I will try some mild way first. Look on the vise, there's already a lot of rust coming out. So I just tap a little while and apply more penetrating oil. Tap a bit more, different angles. Start to get frustrated. I did about 3 minutes, now I have to do something else. And don't worry, I have quite some other slide pin boots, and I think at least one of them would fit. The rust is just nasty, really hate it. Finally I have to burn it, but not too much, very conservative. From different angles, in total about half minute. And tap again. It's coming out. Good lord. Still very stubborn. Now let's try to rotate it. Surprisingly, finally I can turn it. And back and forth. Finally I made it out. I'm gonna cry. Now let's try to restore the caliper bracket. Fill with some brake clean and power brush it. I use the nylon brush because I don't want to scuff the inside. Also clean the outside opening. I repeated this multiple passes until I feel like it's clean. Now the slide pin. Actually it's not too bad. Most of the stem part is pretty good. Only the top portion wrapped with the boot is heavily rusted. Again I have to use power brush. I also have to file down some chipping and stubborn rust. The final product is not bad at all, and let's apply a lot of silicone grease. And make sure the top portion is fully covered. It's a must in our salt belt, dealer would never do it. And then put back in the caliper bracket. I already installed a new boot. Now it can slide in and out. And I did the same thing to the top one. Although it can slide, it's not much better. Very little grease left, and the top part is also rusted. Here I use my fingernail to peel off the boot, so the trapped air can get out and the slider won't be too bouncy. Now let's clean the hub. No, power clean. Much better now, and then apply some anti-seize. I'll reuse the hardware because I'm cheap ass didn't buy new. In our salt belt, it's very critical to make sure the contact surface is flat. Otherwise, there will be rust jacking, jack up the hardware, and somehow stop the brake pads from moving freely. So I take time to file down the bracket surface and apply anti-seize as well. And then snap the hardware in place. Also apply anti-seize to the hardware as well, so the brake pad can ride on it smoothly. I assembled the brake pads onto the bracket first, and then installed the whole thing onto the knuckle. And thread in the caliper bracket bolt by hand first. The rear caliper piston is the screw-in type, so we need some specialty to find the right adapter. It's a little bit difficult to get started, but once it starts, it's just fine. There's definitely some struggle, but with some cursing, you will get there. Okay, not gonna waste your time. I did about 10 minutes. And finally, I'd be able to slap the caliper onto the bracket. Make sure the slide pin is flat, so it can counterhold when you thread in the caliper bolt. Shortly, I have trouble closing the caliper. Feel like the piston is blocked by something. Finally, I figured that was because there was a nipple on the brake pad. So this nipple has to go into the slot in the piston. And right now you can see they are misaligned. So I have to rotate the piston 90 degrees to make it vertical. Alright, fixed now, should be okay. Now the caliper can close all the way, no problem. Now let's torque down everything. The caliper bracket bolt is 103 Newton meter. And the caliper bolt is 28 Newton meter. I also bled the brake fluid, hopefully it won't be stuck anymore. The bleeder valve is 11 millimeter. It's quite a standard two-man operation, I won't go into the details. I also did the same thing to the other side. Once it's all done, hook back the battery. You may have to reset the parking brake, as your dashboard will show this message. Basically, you just firmly apply the foot brake 5 times, and then press the parking brake button, and then supposedly the message will disappear. So let's start the car and see how it is. No more warning message, I consider it a success, and since then up to now it's been driving 2 years, no more problem from rear brakes. But, as you can see, there's a check engine light. That's a small evap leak from the gas tank. I fixed it as well, but I'll leave it to next time. Hopefully you find something useful in this video. Until then, see you next time.